Hi, I'm Chris Pompa. I just want to share a little bit about myself with you. I'm a chef, and right now I teach culinary arts at a university. I've been in the industry for about 14 years now, and to be honest, it's my passion. This is what I love to do. There's nothing more that brings me any greater happiness on the face of the planet. It's a special, unique place where you can take out your anxieties, where you can discover new things, where you can just be yourself. And I love that about food. There's a magical power that it has to be able to bring everybody together and for us to unite at a table under whatever circumstance. Food has the ability to bring everybody together, and I love that about it. It's sort of a unique interaction that you have with a person. You're able to share your artistic creation with somebody who you may never even get to see their face. For me, it's special because I get to put a little piece of my heart on the plate every time I send out that food. I don't see it as food, I see it as art. I see it as a way of expressing myself and being able to connect with other people. So for me, it has a little bit of a deeper meaning. But I've done everything that there really is to do in the kitchen. In my 14 years, I've been everything from the busboy and the dishwasher all the way up to the executive chef. So I've seen the kitchen in every angle and just about every format and under different leaderships and styles. And so I take all of that and I create my own unique sense of who I am and what I do, how I lead my students, how I lead my team. All of this is very, very personal to me, and I hold it very close to my heart. So the ability to show and showcase these things with you guys is definitely very special to me as well. So I think that what we're really trying to do here is not create a cooking show, but create a space where you can come to learn and enjoy what you're watching and hopefully take this up and be part of it as well. There's nothing better than eating good food, and I think we could all agree with that. But enough about me. Let's get cooking. Hi, I'm your chef, Chris Pompa, and welcome to the Art of Cuisine. Today I want to go through a very simple recipe with you guys. It has an Italian origin. We want to make bruschetta. Now, the beautiful part about this dish, and the thing that I love, is that it's just very basic, simple ingredients. We don't understand that when something is very fresh and ripe and colorful, those come with a lot of flavors, right? The more it decays, obviously we step away from the flavor, but when everything is at its peak, you really get to taste all of that freshness. So this dish is very simple. It's only got about 7 ingredients, but we get to highlight all of these ingredients on their own. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with the tomatoes. Now, if you don't have a tomato core at home, which is fine, you can always use a knife. Me, I like to make the most out of every single bit of fruit, produce, meat, you name it. I want to get every single cent that I can out of that. So I like to use special tools. So first of all, we're just going to go ahead and take off this little bottom portion here. We only want enough so that the bottom comes off, but the majority, 95 to almost 100% of that tomato is still there. So we're going to go ahead and do that with all of these real quick and get that out of the way. Now, one thing that I do want to explain and walk you through is this importance of knife skills. And I think that not enough people understand the importance. So highlighting that is going to help all of your future cooking endeavors, I can promise. We don't really understand when something is cut too big and too small and too thin and too large. These all have different cooking temperatures and times. If something is too big, it's going to take longer to cook than something is too small, and vice versa. This makes for uneven cooking. We can get burnt food. We can have undercooked and overcooked in the same pan, and this really isn't very desirable when we're eating. So in order to make sure that everything cooks evenly and also that it looks beautiful, we want to focus on making everything the same shape and size. So for my tomatoes, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and start off by cutting them in half. Now, something that you guys might not know about tomatoes. When you get to the inside, you have the really juicy, seedy pit, right? Now, it's okay when you first cut it open, but as you go, you start to notice that tomato becomes very soggy, and eventually those juices start to leak out into whatever it is that you have combined with these tomatoes. So, the cool thing that we can do here, if you're using your tomato core, grab that again. If you guys are using a spoon at home, that's totally fine. But what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and remove these seeds. It's gonna make the rest of the job so much easier, plus much less cleanup. Nobody likes to clean up. All right, now that we have our tomatoes hollowed out, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to cut these into uniform pieces. And what I mean by that, same shape and size to the best of your ability. All right, now starting with the flat side, not the rounded end, but you want your flat side, the side that you either cut off or scooped out. You want to start at the very bottom and you want to work your way up. Okay, notice how I use my hand as a claw. This holds the food steady so I can make sure that I'm not going to cut off all these important digits that I need for what we're doing. Now, notice I don't cut all the way through. This keeps all of my vegetable intact and it's going to make it a lot easier to hold on to it while we're continuing to cut. Little tricks and tips like this make cooking, cutting, cleaning, all of that just that much easier. My motto is anything that you can do now, just do it, because then it's done and it's out of the way. If you have to go back, things take time. Sometimes we get a little forgetful. So it's best to just do everything up front. So now I'm going to cut my tomato into strips. And I'm going to cut these strips into cubes. We're going to call this a 1/4 inch dice. Now the reason here is you don't want huge bites of a tomato. It's not very interesting on your palate. However, in small doses with these other ingredients, it really highlights the freshness of everything else. So let's work through our tomatoes. All right, now that we have our tomatoes cut up, we're going to go ahead and set these inside of the bowl. Now at this point, we're just going to start to add our other ingredients in there. We'll save this beautiful basil for the end. All right. First we add in our garlic. The best part, Parmesan cheese. Hit this with a pinch of salt. Just a dash of pepper. And beautiful olive oil. I recommend using extra virgin olive oil just because it has that very robust flavor, but that's definitely up to you. All right, now that we have our simple ingredients in here, let's go ahead and go over to our fresh herbs. For this, we're going to be using fresh basil. And the thing I like about this is you can't ignore basil. When it's there, it is very upfront, it's loud, it's very tasty, and it brings a lot to the dish. So the first thing we want to do is just at the base of the stem, we want to pick off the leaf. And we're going to go ahead and set these flat, and I'll show you why in a second. Now, one thing you want to be careful of is whenever you're using fresh herbs, they are much more pungent than a dried herb. So if a recipe calls for a dried herb and you were to substitute a fresh herb, usually use about half the quantity. We don't want to overpower the dish with the basil, but we do want to bring everything out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and stack these basil leaves on top of each other. All right. Gives us a nice flat bed. Now, starting from the stem side, rolling away from you, you want to roll this up into a tight little roll, just like this. Now, the reason for that is we're going to do what the French call a chiffonade, or in layman's terms, a ribbon cut. This right here is going to give us little strings, essentially, but again, it's not too overpowering. You're not biting into a huge leaf. You're not getting too much of that flavor. So these we just want to do really, really thin, about as thin as you can get them. Now we take these and just pull these apart. Now, we have our bruschetta go out and made up. So this can sit as it is once we toss it together. But the thing that we need to make sure is that we have our French baguette. You could really use any baguette that you would like. I prefer the French. I think it has a really good flavor. You really get to taste that yeast and that fermentation in there. You can use sourdough. You can use whatever type that you prefer. I've even seen it on wheat, but that's not traditional. So the traditional way would be with the French baguette. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mix this up. So now we've taken the French bread out of the oven. Let's go ahead and top this here. You just want to put a good amount on top of each one of your slices here. Nothing too much. Remember, we're just looking to get all those flavors together. Thank you guys again for joining us on the first episode of The Art of Cuisine. I'm your host, Chef Chris Pompa. I hope you guys enjoy the recipe. Let me know what you think about it. I'll see you next time.